Number 2, we are going to cover lesson 75. Now, lesson 75 is on graphing. So let's be honest and let's be real. You're going to use Desmos. I'm going to explain how to do it by hand, but I recognize that we're all probably going to use technology, and that's fine. So maybe the part I can help you with is the domain and range. So if this is a free app, you can put it on your phone. You could put it on your school iPad. It's wonderful. So I'm going to explain the original radical equation, and then we can do the rest using our Desmos. So the first and most basic function is y equals the square root of x. Now know that I can also write this as y equals x to the 1/2. Okay, the exponent of 1/2 equals the square root symbol. Okay, so know that they can be written different. So the square root of x, for it to be a function, my domain is limited. Okay, I cannot take the square root of a negative number without getting I. So the smallest number I can enter in for x is 0. Right? And the square root of 0 is 0. So that is the first point, 0, 0. Now, I am using square roots, so I'm going to enter the square roots of numbers that I know. I don't want to work with decimals. So, the square root of 9, right? If I plug 9 in for x, I get 3. The square root of 4, if I plug it in, I get 2. And the square root of 1 is 1. So, hopefully you understand I'm using these numbers because I don't want to have to use my calculator. I don't want to have to get decimals. And so, here is my graph at 0, 0. 1, 1. If I plug in 4, I get 2. If I plug in 9, I get 3. Now notice I do not have an arrow on this side, and that's for a reason. Remember, because I can't plug in negative numbers for x. And so the graph starts here, so you'll have a dot. But I can continue to plug in positive numbers. That's why there's an arrow here. Now, this first point is very important, and it's going to affect domain and range. So my domain, x, right, the first number I was able to plug in is 0. And if I look at my numbers 1, 4, 9, those are greater than. But I was able to plug in 0, so I can equal 0. So my domain is limited. X is greater than or equal to 0. My range, the first answer I got for y is 0, and these values for y are greater than, and I was able to get 0, so it can equal. And so there's my domain and range. Now this should be similar to what we get in Desmos. So I could write y equals, it's such a glare with my phone under here, but if you can see that, y equals, and then the square root of x. And you should get a similar picture on your phone or iPad or whatever you're using. All right, so let's do the lesson practice. And I don't have the book next to me, but this is lesson 75, so you can find what page that's on. So we're going to graph y equals the square root of 3x minus 2. All right, so you could use Desmos here, okay? So I'm going to enter this in my Desmos. So y equals, and then underneath I'm going to write 3x minus 2. And then I'm going to zoom in on my points. So that first point is 2/3 and 0. So, sorry, where did my ruler go? So here is 2, 4, 6, 8, and here's 2. So at 2/3, so here's 1. So 2/3 would be here. So 2/3 is my first point, and I'm going to record that. That's important because that's going to affect my domain and range. So on Desmos, it says my first point is at 2/3 and 0. The next nice point looks like 2 and 2. And so 2 and 2. Using Desmos, the next nice point, I don't really see another nice, is 9 and 5. 9 and 5. So I'm just using Desmos and I'm looking for where it crosses. There's 9, 5, where a nice couple points. So here is my graph. Remember this, don't draw an arrow at this dot. This is where the graph starts. And so I grabbed those points from Desmos. So there's my graph. Let's now talk about domain and range. And domain and range is going to be affected by this first point we were able to graph. So my bad. X is greater than or equal to 2/3, and Y is greater than or equal to 0. That's both. And you can put 0.67, that's fine. I know that that is what the graph. So you could also put 0.67 for that first. That's totally fine. All right, part B wants us to graph Y equals 4x plus 9 to the 1/2. Now remember that this is the same as the square root of 4x plus 9, okay? They have an equivalent value, that exponent and that root symbol. So I'm just going to track those first couple points. I'm going to use Desmos. So I'm going to enter it this way because then I can just edit the last problem we did. So I have 4x plus 9. And then I'm going to zoom out up here. And I'm going to find where that first point is. I'm going to click on it. Okay, negative 2.25 and 0. And this next point looks like it's at 0.3. And then this next point looks like it's at 10.7. Okay, and so those are the only points I'm going to graph. So 8, 6, 4, 2, that would put this at 0. I'm going to move that up, my bad. And here's negative 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Here's x, and this is y. So my first point is at negative 2.25 and 0, 0, 3, and 10, 7. Sure is nice to have Desmos. Okay, now domain and range, remember, is affected by that first point, that first dot. So x is greater than or equal to negative 2.25, and again, y is greater than or equal to 0. Okay. Moving on to part C. So this section does have our cubic functions in them, so I'm going to go ahead and enter those in a second. All right, so next one. Now, this book then switches to cubic, okay? So I'm actually going to go over that on here. So the, y equals the cube root of x. Now, the interesting part about the cube root of x is I can take the cube root of both negative and positive numbers. So this one isn't limited like the square root is. And so this table would look like the following. So let's say I have x, I have y. I'm going to do negative 8, negative 1, 0, 1, 8. Now the reason I use these numbers is these numbers have a cube root. The cube root of positive 8 is positive 2. The cube root of negative 8 is negative 2, because negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 gives you negative 8. The cube root of negative 1 is negative 1. The cube root of 0 is 0. and the cube root of 1 is 1. So there is, sorry, and I'm going to show you the shape of this graph because it looks different than our other ones. So here is positive 2, negative 2. Now this graph has like this really crazy S shape to it, where the square root is like half of an S. So negative 8, let me grab, gives me negative 2, negative 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 8, 2. And so your graph looks like, here's a, like, if I just covered that up, it looks like what we've been graphing. But then I have like this inverse side to it. And so there is the cube, the basic cubic function. My domain and range, because it's a cube root, I can plug in positive and negative. So for both of these, my domain is all real numbers, and same with range. So I'm going to do 3 from our lesson practice, and that's it. So part C, y equals the cube root of 4x plus 3, and I'm going to use Desmos. So on Desmos, I need to figure out how to enter cube root. So y equals, and let's see here, if I go to a functions, see I'm having to figure this out with you. There is in root. Under functions, under miscellaneous, I have in root. So I probably have to enter the 3 and then functions, in root. Oh, no, I don't have to enter the 3. Okay, so just go to functions, in root, and you get to enter the 3 right there. And then underneath, I will enter 4x plus 3. And I'm going to pick out a couple of these points. So, and I'm going to record them. Let's see if I can find a nice point over here, though. It looks like if I zoom in, I've got, oh, not that many. I don't really have any nice points. I have 0 and 1.442. This point here is negative 0.75 and 0. What about right here? Negative 5. And looks like negative 2.5. And let's grab one from over here. That looks like positive 6 and 3. So using Desmos, right, that's the benefit of us having Desmos and you not having to do it all by hand. So I've got 2, 4, 6, negative 2, negative 4, negative 6, 2, negative 2. All right, so 0 and 1.4, negative 0.75 and 0, negative 5 and 2.5, and 6, 3. And so if you know the shape, it helps us graph our functions. Either way, know that domain and range is all real numbers. All right, part D. Y equals 5x minus 4 to the 1/3 plus 7. So let's rewrite this. This is the same as this cube root of 5x minus 4 and then out here plus 7. And so that's how I'm going to enter it, and that way it's less to edit in Desmos. So 5x minus 4, and then you just hit enter and then plus 7. And so here is my graph up above, and I'm just going to find some real points. So it looks like 0 and 5.4 is one of them. And then I'm going to put 0.8 and 7.4. It looks like, I'm just picking out points. It looks like -5 and 4. And where's another nice point? 4 and 9. All right, so the +7 is why it's so high above. So I should probably leave room for 9 on here. So let's say this is 9. This would be 7, 5, 3, 1. Here would be 0. And so 2, -6, 6. So 0 and 5.4, 0.8 and 7.4, 4, 9, and -5, 4. No matter what you do, your graph needs to have kind of an S shape. And both domain and range is all real numbers. I'm going to skip E and F because the ones on the test are not half as hard as those are, and you do have Desmos to utilize. Thank you.